Monitoring the devastating impacts of natural and man-made events is one of the general ideas and duties we have to stand for during these contemporary times. The food crisis becoming global in 2023 could constitute a humanitarian catastrophe of the 21st century and maybe of the third millennium. In addition to what we have deliberated in late August, the specific situation of Afghanistan, in example, is alarming. I have read from Martin Griffiths as well regarding the matter. Food insecurity in Afghanistan must ring the bell to everyone globally regarding the consequences of such crisis. In the case of Afghanistan, this gets piled with the numerous other problems such as political instability, extreme poverty, and terrorism. Regarding the issues of climate change, the flooding situation in Pakistan ravaged the country during the summer. The humanitarian action here also requires gigantic efforts just to get back to the situation before the flooding. A phenomenon that is hitting hard, speaking of climate change, in addition to other of its characteristics across the planet, such as droughts and global warming temperatures. As a third element, the modern bacteriological war is ongoing. Long story short, a global steering committee will monitor this context of action for the next four cycles from 2022 to 2026 in order to recreate the condition of a full new between quotes old normal, if I may. Discussing this with my close contacts as we did from March to September 2020 and as I highlighted in the beginning of last April. For history, we are going to win the modern bacteriological war slowly but surely, but never forget. Much obliged. The goal is to have the newly regulated economy back on track at a global sphere. I commend the efforts of the Gates Foundation and also the recent trip of Melinda Gates, for that matter, to Senegal and Rwanda. For my part, myself, I focus my counterterrorism policy in Senegal, one of the leaders in the field in West Africa, from a regional strategy perspective. Dakar, St. Louis, Thiès, Ziguinchor, Kaolack, the Casamance region, the Senegambian Basin, and other parts of the country. I highlighted before the International Criminal Court this year the numerous local and regional conflicts that are ongoing and ravaging many countries across the globe. Speaking of the Sahel, my thoughts are on Mali. I commend the efforts of the peacekeepers from the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and of MINUSMA and the UNS peacekeeping mission as a whole, deployed in Bamako, Sikasso, Mopti, Kayes, Gao, and other parts of the country. I recently retweeted a tweet from Lieutenant General Keith Tyson regarding an important mission in Tinhama near Gao. Always in Africa, I'm very saddened to hear the battles resuming in the context of the Tigray conflict in Ethiopia and the recent confrontations in Libya as well. I will get back later to speak about North Africa, much later. In the meantime, following up with the work of the United Nations Security Council with the presidency of France, a longtime friend of Africa, and also knowing that Gabon and Ghana will follow as respective presidents of the Council respectively during the months of October and November. But the problems are also raging in Asia, in the Middle East, not only regarding the conflicts between Israel and Palestine, but also in Lebanon, and I commend the efforts of China's presidency in order to extend the work of the UN in order to reestablish peace and security in Lebanon, as well as the conflicts that are ongoing in Syria and Iraq that have been going increasingly during the last decades. In Southeast Asia, the horrific proportion of the conflicts in Myanmar has taken another dimension since 2021. So, another general debate of the United Nations General Assembly lately this month that will be determinant to the world's future. Since the Marxist-Leninist roots of the doctrines of the Eastern Bloc originated from the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, and following the Bolshevism in the USSR, each country adopted its own guidelines of either communism or socialism. Differences appeared between many countries of the Eastern Bloc starting the second half of the 20th century. I spoke about this on a video previously. In the USSR era, the conception of leadership appeared back after 1917 in Russia and Ukraine. Moscow adopted the concept of leadership through chairmen and first or general secretaries, what was known to the West as the head of state of the USSR. There were also troikas, most notably the one of Kamenev, Stalin, and Zinoviev, and lately the one of Brezhnev, Kosygin, and Podgorny. Russia has also its leadership via the chairman of the Supreme Soviet of the Russian SFSR. Now I'm speaking just about Russia inside of the USSR. In Ukraine, the SSR had Soviet leaders of the state in 1918, then from 1921 to 1991. The last was Leonid Kravchuk, who passed away in 2022, this year. But also there were in Ukraine first secretaries of the Communist Party of Ukraine, the Central Committee at the level of Kiev. After the USSR, Kravchuk, known also as the first president of Ukraine, clearly showed divergences of orientations compared to Boris Yeltsin's government in Moscow. The CIS was not an idea that could last, even if it is still present today with the leadership of Russia and other former Soviet republics. Few of them are not there, such as Ukraine and Georgia. Mongolia is an observer state at the level of the CIS. Moscow, after Yeltsin, stayed focused on its development without getting involved with the European Union, while still being nevertheless a strong advocate of pan-Europeanism from Lisbon to Vladivostok. We saw that during Putin era 1, then Medvedev, then Putin era 2 presently. Kiev, before Zelensky, adopted basically a complete rapprochement with the West during the time of Yushchenko, Yanukovych, and later with Poroshenko. This reflects also the ideas of the leaders of the Ukrainian People's Republic in exile, from the time of Simon Petliura to the one of Mykola Plavyuk. We are following up, long story short, with support of the United Nations Security Council work and the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly regarding the topic of what is ongoing between Russia and Ukraine. For the matters of counterterrorism, I'll be looking forward to the United Nations Global Congress of Victims of Terrorism, as I mentioned in my past podcast on August the 12th. That intervenes after the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Terrorism that took place on August the 21st. I continuously commend the efforts of the UNOCITY Regional Office in Rabat in the Kingdom of Morocco. I want also to thank the United Arab Emirates and Kenya for convening an Area Formula meeting of the United Nations Security Council yesterday in order to cover the issues that are related to the threats to international peace and security caused by transnational activities of terrorist groups. Among the main important technical ideas that I have took note of is the one related to the drones, as they are a very important factor in order to spread terrorism through a transnational strategy. I've been hearing during this meeting from experts of counterterrorism and colleagues, as well as from the representative, of course, of the UAE and Kenya, other current members of the Security Council, incoming members Malta, Ecuador, Mozambique, Japan, and Switzerland, as well as from Denmark, who spoke on behalf of the 5 Nordic countries. I heard from Somalia, Yemen, Tunisia, Mali, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Equatorial Guinea, Poland, Tajikistan, Portugal, Pakistan, the Netherlands, Sierra Leone, Israel, the European Union, Ethiopia, Morocco, Italy, Egypt, Hungary, and Turkey. As of the other technical issues that I have been following up, mostly with the CTED, I would want to get back to an important point that was discussed with the docket and the Clooney Foundation this in August. The illicit trade of cultural property for tourism purposes, linkages with the financing of terrorism, was a very important point to analyze, as well as the issue that is related to countering the dissemination of online content relating to violent extremism and terrorist incidents. Among the other reports that I have been focusing on related to the work of counterterrorism, the ones of the Secretary General, the first one addressed to the General Assembly, focusing on terrorist attacks on the basis of xenophobia, racism, and other forms of intolerance, or in the name of the religion of belief. The other one was addressed to the United Nations Security Council. It was technically the 15th report of the Secretary General on the threat posed by ISIL Daesh for international peace and security, and the range of the United Nations efforts in support of member states in countering the threats. On another context, I was glad to follow up with the United Nations Police Third UN Chiefs of Police Summit to discuss the global policing challenges and the way forward. Many rich topics were discussed regarding this matter. So basically, the UN COPS is offering the unique opportunity to the world's police executives and the United Nations leadership to engage in discussion on how the United Nations policing and national policing manually reinforce one another when addressing current and emerging global security challenges, including man-made and natural crises and incidents. Very important to discuss the enhancing police effectiveness through training, delivering as one UN, and also the application of emerging technologies in law enforcement, the United Nations police and action peace building priorities. They were in panel in French, highlighted on the second day of the summit, les compétences linguistiques et intellectuelles comme facteurs clés de la performance de la police des Nations Unies, l'expérience de la police de proximité, sponsored by the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. Also, issues related to reintegrating artificial intelligence and law enforcement operations in terms of risks and rewards were discussed. We have also heard issues regarding security and development by helping and preventing the direct crime, protecting life and property, and maintaining public and order safety in adherence with the rule of law and basically the international humanitarian law, and the United Nations police lay the seeds in order to make lasting peace and development ahead. Among the other things that could be discussed also, the exchange on member states' future asks of the United Nations Police as a system-wide service provided by the United Nations Policing and other law enforcement matters, on the Secretariat's requirement to further improve the performance and effectiveness of the United Nations policing and impacts. Besides counterterrorism, looking forward to the UNDP's report on human development on September the 8th. So when I get back here to stand behind His Majesty King Mohammed VI regarding all the issues that are related to the diplomatic relations with Algeria. Algeria must understand what is the meaning of the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Morocco. I have already exposed this before. The fact that Algeria wants to be a candidate for the United Nations Security Council should normally constitute a strength for the MENA region and not a weakness, and work hands in hands with Morocco in order to win challenges against terrorism in the region and also indirectly in the Middle East, as well as contributing to the economic development of the Maghreb, of Africa, and the Arab world. Getting back here to the situation of Libya, to reaffirm the importance of holding the elections as soon as possible in order to bring the both fighting parties hands in hands for negotiations and a potential path for peacekeeping in the country. Besides the developing virus, getting back here to Argentina to express my concern following the attack, the potential assassination attempt on the vice president of the country, Kirchner. If I want to move forward to the United States, as I have been mentioning, a lot of things to discuss from the federal level regarding the governance and counterterrorism that we will have the opportunity to speak about during the month of September, especially coinciding with the speech of the United States as well at the United Nations General Assembly. From a governance perspective, outside of counterterrorism, I would say that one of the most important things is to focus more and more on the economy. The signs are not giving a lot of optimism right now, especially if we look at the housing market recession that could carry over till 2024, according to Goldman Sachs. And from the perspective of the elections, looking forward to the effective rules of the midterms and the important matters of discussing these issues at this level. I had the opportunity to meet and hear from Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York during the month of August. So it's a very important thing. As I mentioned, it's a micro step in, unfortunately, in the shadow of the modern bacteriological war. But without this factor, it's a very important thing in order to rebuild as a micro step the politics inside of the United States. Important to mention also that the midterms will have an impact on the candidates for the presidential election in the United States in 2024. No official announcement has been made regarding this matter, and like I explained before, this also will be a micro step. Foreseeing how the economy is getting developed in 2022 till 2024 is an important and major factor in this context of action. From the perspective of the states, we're following here with the state of New York as the discussion is ongoing, as there is a race here as well during the midterms. Administrative involvement with the state of New Jersey, and when it comes to California, getting back here, since I mentioned the housing crisis federally, to the importance of the housing conference that will be held in California in order to increase the housing supply with California Senate Bill 9 and Senate Bill 10 statewide. Also following up with the issue of Jackson in Mississippi as well, speaking on the state level decision making. So, like I said, there will be much more to come that I want to discuss with you guys after checking also my PR and DMs on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. But most importantly, continuing the debate here in YouTube and also on the short videos. Many more short videos to come, as I have mentioned, during the month of August, a new cycle. Working forward on it, trying to cement as much things as possible. We're not robots, doing our best. and of course getting back soon enough on a long video here in order to discuss the general debate of the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, as well as other topics.